I'm Michael Fox, and this is the Prospector News Podcast, and we're on location at the New Orleans Investment Conference. And I'm joined today by Rob Bergmann, Director and CEO of Relevant Gold. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Always a pleasure to have you. For those that aren't familiar with Relevant Gold, let's give them the elevator pitch and the 10,000-foot view.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we are a gold exploration company, and we are searching for very large district scale gold opportunities throughout Wyoming in the United States. Specifically, though, we believe that parts of Wyoming are actually an extension of the world famous Abitibi Gold belts, some of the most prolific gold belts in the world that have produced over 200 million ounces. We really started to put this thesis together by connecting the dots in actual academic literature and taking a true data-backed approach. And it put us into this Archean belt in Wyoming that, again, was connected to the Abitibi during the time of gold mineralization about 2.6 billion years ago. Later, rifted apart at about 2.1 billion years to where it presently resides. And that really opened up Wyoming in a way for us from the gold perspective in a big way. And the orogenic gold deposits that we're looking for are some of the richest, highest grade types of gold deposits globally.
Yeah, I found that interesting in that the volcano in the center of the continent would split the gold belt in the fashion where one side has been explored quite extensively, but the other side seems to be neglected. Is there any particular reason why the Wyoming side of the equation has been kind of neglected?
Yeah, well, so I think there's a number of reasons. It wasn't neglected. First and foremost, there was a lot of historic gold mining throughout Wyoming, 1840s up until the early 1900s. Certain parts of Wyoming saw a significant amount of high-grade orogenic gold mining, most of which fizzled out when they hit the water table because they didn't have pumps to pump the water out and deal with that, and they'd move on to the next high-grade zone. But outside of that, there really hasn't been a group until us that's connected all these dots in the literature. And again, this isn't a thesis we made up. This is something that a lot of very smart people and academic, professors and geologists that have published on this work since really starting in the 60s, but it really didn't become kind of more common in the research until the early 2000s when age dating technologies and things like that made it possible. So a lot of it is really just our ability to connect Wyoming to one of the biggest gold belts in the world. That hasn't really been something others have thought about prior. And so that's why we do believe, where there is historic high-grade mining, there's tremendous opportunity. But all along these Archean belts in Wyoming, they're littered with Abitibi scale potential.
Yeah, what I find really interesting is that, you have alluded to the older mines that have happened, and you have several of those on the property that you currently hold there.
Yep, you bet. Yeah, so a couple of them on our property we're currently drilling right now. We're drilling a blind target, completely green fields at our Lewiston project. But just to the south is some of the richest, highest grade gold mines of that area, the South Pass area in Lewiston, the Hidden Hand and the Burr mines. And some of the historic reports had, thousands of ounces per ton gold that came out of those mines. And again, mined only down to about 100 feet where they abandoned intersecting water. And then, throughout the other part of the district, again, we see in the Carissa mine, that mine on record had produced at least 180,000 ounces since they started recording it. And it only mined down to the 400-foot level. So very prolific, high-grade, orogenic shear-hosted systems that were deeply looked at and mined in the late 1800s and early 1900s, but since have largely been overlooked.
Yeah. Now, this has been a bit of a strange year in that you guys had snowfall a lot late in the year, so you got a bit of a slow start, but you guys have been pretty busy and had quite an impressive drill program slated for the summer. And what can you tell me about the drill program?
Yeah, well, the thing that I think a lot of groups are challenged with in today's market is the market itself. And that's why we've really focused on what we can control, which is doing high quality work, really good exploration, and being very smart with our money. So we're stretching our money this year incredibly far. We've got a $1.3 million exploration budget. And with that, we're getting regional work done across our entire portfolio of assets. Each one of our assets is getting detailed rock and map chips, rock sampling and mapping, as well as soil sampling surveys. We have an airborne geophysical program being flown over our entire portfolio of 5 district scale assets. And in addition to that, we're drilling our next big target at Lewiston, which is our heavy hand target. Again, this was generated from our boots on the ground systematic work approach. Greenfield's target that has 2 ounces per ton, 62.4 grams per ton gold at surface in these shear zones. And it's laid in this kind of 10-kilometer long shear zone corridor that's laced with high grade gold. So really it's got scale, it's got a distinct alteration profile. So we're excited to be drilling that target as well. So again, our exploration program on a shoestring budget is going to go a long way. And one of the ways we're doing that is, we've got our chief exploration officer and founder, Brian Lentz, and myself, co-founder and CEO, and our vice president corporate development. That's the team that's out running this project, right? We've had a lot of success in building a top tier consulting firm in the industry. So who better to take over the reins and do this program this year more cost effectively? And that's exactly what we've done.
Yeah, and it's when you have consultants on the board, I guess you don't need to run out and hire more consultants.
Yeah, that keeps that part of the burn rate down.
How many holes are being drilled, and how deep are they going?
Yeah, so our total program was planned for about 10 to 12 holes, totaling 1,500 meters. We're going to end up right in that window. We might end up a little bit over 1,500 meters, again, because we are being as fiscally conservative as possible, trying to stretch that buck into the ground as far as we can. So we should be finishing up that program here in the relative future, probably with our about 11 holes and 1,500-1,600 meters.
Now, when you say 1,500 meters, you talk about historically the old timers were able to mine down to about 400 feet, correct?
Yep.
How far below where the old miners were able to get before they flooded out does this drill program take you?
Sure, great question. Well, first and foremost, what we're drilling is not where the historic mines are. So this is a true greenfields target that we generated through our systematic work from doing detailed mapping, rock chip sampling, soils, geophysics, and it really identified this heavy hand target. So there are no active mine shafts there, but our drill program is going to average holes from about 100 meters upwards of to maybe 450 to 500 meters. So we'll have a range of some shallow drilling, testing this from surface, as well as some deep holes to understand the full extent of this orogenic system.
So when the drill results start to come in the next several months, what is, as Rick Rill likes to say, the unanswered questions that you're hoping to get answers to?
Yeah, well, so what we see at surface is these stacked near vertical subparallel shear zones. And these are the ones that are enriched in this high grade gold with a strong alteration profile. And so really we want to see that those are truly orogenic vertical shear zones that extend at depth. And we want to understand what's happening not only in the shear zone itself, but in between these parallel panels of shearing. Does the alteration profile that we see at surface, is that consistent at depth? Is the geochemical signature that we see at surface continue at depth? We have a very strong correlation to arsenic and arsenopyrite in this system. And so that gives us a really good geochemical vector as we continue to explore. So what we really want to see is, does the geology we've mapped at surface continue at depth to depths exceeding 100-200 meters, really proving that this is a deep-rooted orogenic system? And what does it look like? Do we have the abundancy of veining, alteration, and geochemistry? Now, granted, it's 1,500 meters into an orogenic system, so we're not necessarily thinking we're going to define a resource out of this by any means, but we are going to try to test that geology at depth and make sure that we still see what we're seeing at surface extending from there, and that would be a big win for us.
I see, yeah, and quite frankly, one drill hole does not make a ore body.
Nope.
It does maybe indicate that you're onto something, though.
100%. Yep.
Wonderful. When are we expecting these results?
So I think, you can expect over the course of the next kind of 2 to 3 months, a pretty steady flow of news from us, results-based news, starting with some of our regional program work that we should be getting results on any day now, and understanding if we've got some really good new targets across our portfolio to add into the pipeline of drilling. And then the drilling results hopefully starting to trickle in the next, 4 to 6 weeks, and from there successively until we get all of them back. We're batching them out based on geologic holes that our QP and Chief Exploration Officer Brian is laying out as he logs all the core.
Wonderful. And so after the results come out, are you funded towards next year's drill program, or will it be time to go to the market?
Oh, there'll be time to go to the market. We've also got a fair amount of cash. Like I said, we've understood where the markets are, so we've operated very nimble. We've conserved as much capital as possible. So I suspect we'll be going into the end of the year with a pretty decent treasury still. Probably closer to $1.5 million. So we're in a good spot. But when the market window's there and based on results, we certainly will be looking to ramp up a fundraise at some point to fund a much more aggressive program in 2024.
Wonderful. And what does 2024 lead to bring out for you?
Yeah, so again, if everything goes well this year and the results come how we can hope, we're hoping to have some new targets to get up and follow up on across our Bradley Peak project, Golden Buffalo, Shield Carissa, Windy Flat, some of those other programs. We're also hoping to get into like I said, a much more extensive drill program. We proved up our Golden Buffalo target. We know that we've got a fertile orogenic shear-hosted gold system there. That's now going to need a minimum of 5,000 to 15,000 meters of drilling to really test that corridor. And likewise at Lewiston, once we start getting results, if we like what we're seeing and what we're expecting, that's going to need a significant follow-up program as well. So if it was a perfect world and in forward-looking statement sentiment, we'd love to drill 10 to 20,000 meters across multiple targets next year, as well as continuing to build our portfolio of targets on the back end.
Wonderful. That sounds pretty good. If people want to follow you, follow the company, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, I'm big on LinkedIn personally, so always can follow me there. But as far as the company goes, follow us on LinkedIn, all the social platforms, as well as get on our email list. We're really good about sending out information. We won't bombard you with information. You will get things that matter and are important as a shareholder or a prospective shareholder. So know that, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to me directly or our investor relations department internally.
Yeah, that's what one of the things I like about you and your company is if investors actually call, they get a call back.
Well, we try to pride ourselves on that, and Chris Jensen, who heads up communications, is really good about that, as you know. And at the end of the day, that's what we're in it for, right? It's for our shareholders, and as the biggest shareholder myself, we're looking for wins.
Absolutely, it's good to have skin in the game at the highest levels.
That's what we're doing it for.
Wonderful. I look forward to seeing the results, and as those roll out, we'll have you back on the podcast, and we'll talk about there, and I'm sure we'll have some firmer steps forward for next year based on those results.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
The Prospector News podcast is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and are not to be taken as investment advice. Listeners need to do their own due diligence and seek advice of a licensed investment advisor.